traveled to 4 countries during my sabbatical, but one of them changed me in ways I did not expect. I was able to buy a round trip ticket that took me to Spain, India, Vietnam, Singapore, and Japan before returning home to New York. It was something that I dreamed of, and finally that dream came true. And so along the way, I was able to experience some different cultures. As many of you can imagine, visiting a country is not the same as living in a country. And even when you live in a country, you only get to know what it's like to a certain extent, depending on your experience with the language and your access to the deeper levels of that country. But I have to say that I was really blown away by how much I was able to experience in such a short amount of time. 6 weeks isn't that much time, but it's enough time to really be able to get a sense of the energy of a place and the culture and the rhythm and the food. I feel so lucky to have had that opportunity to experience some unique cultures during that amount of time. Hi, I'm Kalima Fergus Ayele. I'm an international school leader and CEO and founder of Round Trip Ticket Home. At Round Trip Ticket Home, we support schools and school leadership teams with using design thinking tools to create systems and structures that promote connection and belonging. Why design thinking tools? Well, design thinking tools are a human-centered approach to problem solving that really allow us to use our empathy to understand the needs of who we want to serve and really take time to define the challenge. And then we move into being able to use our imagination to envision what we want as our ideal outcome. And finally, we have an opportunity to prototype and test solutions as we make our way toward the outcome that we desire. Round Trip Ticket Home is really a way of thinking about our experience as humans, where we are each in our own way going through the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is popularized by Joseph Campbell, who talks about the ways in which our stories and our myths all follow the same trajectory. And one of our stories we can think of that highlights this would be something like The Wizard of Oz, where we follow a young heroine, Dorothy, as she finds herself and her dog Toto in a strange land, and she's trying to make her way back home. And along the way, she makes some companions. She meets a scarecrow who's looking for intelligence. She meets a tin man who is looking for heart, and a lion who's looking for courage. And they finally make their way to the powerful Wizard of Oz, only to find out that he has no power, and he never did. And all along, they had everything that they needed within themselves. And so in that same way, we find ourselves in a moment where we might be looking for some external hero, when the truth is we are the ones that we've been waiting for. So when I think about this journey, this opportunity that I had to travel to other cultures and experience a different way of life, even for a brief moment, the one that I would have to say when I think about experiencing even briefly the passion of the flamenco dance in Spain, and even the complexity of the mythologies of India, these systems and structures of Singapore, the diverse narratives of Vietnam. But the one that I would say blew me away had to be Japan. And a lot of that really had to do with the fact that it was so clear that there were ways in which they approached design and creating systems that just felt so human-centered and humane. It seemed as if everything had been thought through with such intentionality. And when I think about what it was like for me as someone who was foreign and really trying to navigate a new culture, it's not easy, but it was made possible because there were so many systems in place to support. I also loved the way Japan seemed to have this real respect for the natural world, even while they were still highlighting innovation and modernity. There was almost this seamless connection between the two. And I think that's a very difficult balance space, to have a space where certain natural elements, and I do believe that that is somehow rooted in their own religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs, but this idea that everything has a spirit. In that way, it's almost as if the mountain and the trees and the rivers and the buildings and the sidewalks are all being honored in a way that feels very balanced. My experience in Japan was definitely impacted by the fact that I was also exploring the opportunity of working in Japan at the same time. That had an influence on my experience of visiting, because while I visited the country as a guest, I was also thinking about whether or not I would want to live there. And being open to a country in that way does shift the perspective greatly. I had actually just finished up at finalist interviews at a school in Japan and wasn't sure about whether or not I would be working there during the time that I was visiting. And so experiencing a culture while also holding the possibility of living there really did impact my experience. But I'm curious to know from you, is there some place that you have visited that has had a deep impact on who you are and the way you see the world? Please leave a comment below and let's have a conversation about what it's like to travel the world and get a different vantage point and then bring that back home with you. Thank you for listening in on this conversation. It's been a pleasure sharing my experience with you. And please like and subscribe. I look forward to speaking with you again next time. Bye for now.